All right, we are back with part two of this. We took a little water break. Linda's back, I'm back. So I have about 4 or 5 questions for Linda, then we'll talk more about the Hollywood stuff. And Linda did see my dad's movie when she came up to visit. She saw it twice. She's going twice. And let's talk about some rather serious stuff first because that's your specialty too, okay? All right. My notes are right here. So, question number one, how has technology changed family dynamics?
Oh, enormously, and in some ways not for the better. But let's talk about the positives and negatives, okay? So, I don't have any children that I know of.
That's 1 point for Lynn. I'm keeping score on the jokes here, but okay. All
Okay.
right, go ahead. Yeah.
Just remember, I was asked to be a staff comedy writer for Laugh-In when I was 19.
That's right. I remember when you came to
Right.
visit. Okay,
That's
cool.
right.
Mhm.
So I have to do my jokes as well. And being a psychotherapist and an expert witness, if I don't keep my sense of humor, uh, it is unbelievable the negativity, the human depravity, the perversion, the sickness that I have had to deal with in decades as an expert witness and a psychotherapist. Rape, incest, child molestation, you name it, I've had to deal with it. So, battering, domestic violence, murder, just horror stories. So I have to keep my sense of humor. So, the good news is that if I were a parent, I would definitely want my children to have a cell phone, a beeper, a tracker, something, because there's so much danger out there for little children. Okay. And one of the things that I also recommend is that little kids should take judo lessons and self-defense classes so that they know how to scream, yell, bite, kick in the shins. You know, a 5-year-old can kick a knee out of place in 2 seconds. So when I took 5 self-defense classes, that's one of the things that I learned is that you aim for the eyes and you aim for the knees because you need to debilitate somebody as quickly as possible. I also recommend that adults and maybe even children or teens should carry mace and a pepper spray. So that's debatable. Some people want to do that, but one of the gifts I used to give my interns for Christmas every year was mace with a little wrist cord so they could put it up their sleeve and whip it out in case they needed to mace somebody. So the good news is that you can contact your children can contact you. Maybe the ride doesn't show up, maybe the bus is late, maybe there's problems at school, maybe they're having difficulties with bullies. So I think that the speed of communication, whether it's cell phones, email, text messages, etc., is wonderful. And that's one of the things that I really recommend to keep the communication going between
So,
children.
so the communication is number one, and
That's right.
that's now. I will say this: there was a school district in California that banned phones during classes. I kind of agree with that. What do you think? Just during
Oh, I
class?
definitely agree.
Okay.
Um, as you know, I have 3 K through 6 teaching credentials, New York, New Jersey, California. I've taught in public school, private school, kindergarten, first grade, and nursery school. And these kids will be on their cell phones and not learn anything.
That's
So
bad.
should they
Got it.
be lined up on a side table when they come in? Absolutely, because
Okay.
they need to pay attention
Good.
in the classes.
I
So
agree.
definitely agree with that.
Okay.
Now, the
Um,
negative part
yeah,
in
go
terms
ahead.
of families
Yeah.
and how technology has just decimated family communication is that people don't talk to each other. There are people who literally sit next to each other, or kids are sitting or standing next to each other. They're texting each other. So one of the detriments is they're lacking social skills. They're lacking how to read people. They're lacking how to be diplomatic, tactful, give people feedback, set limits and boundaries for themselves, and not learn how to deal with bullies because they're on their phones. So that's
Yeah.
an issue. And let me also say this.
Yeah.
If I had ever brought a cell phone to a dinner table,
Uh-oh.
my father, who was a staff sergeant in World War II,
Where's my belt?
staff
Whoosh.
sergeants are like,
Ooh.
I had to
Yeah.
pass room inspection every Saturday morning, or no date, no game, no cheerleading, no parties.
Okay.
Okay, so I would have had the phone taken away. I would have been grounded for about 2 months. And parents, and I'll give you an example of a client I had. She comes into my office. She goes, "Well, I just want to be their friend." Well, let me have news for you, ma'am. You are not their friend. You can be friendly, but you're the parent, and you need to act like a parent, and you need to set limits and boundaries. She leaves the office. The 8-year-old comes in, plops herself on the chair and says like this, "I don't think I need to be here."
Oh,
Well,
jeez.
yeah, from that statement,
Yeah.
it's obvious you do.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, is that parents have sort of given up their responsibilities of
Yeah.
setting limits. And here's the other thing. They're raising children who don't understand consequences for their behavior. So I want to know where the moral, ethical, legal standards are that these children are being raised with, because most of them think they're above the law, or dad and mom will just get an attorney or pay somebody off or sweet talk, the vice principal or the police or the judge or whatever. And these kids just keep waltzing through the system and never learn that they cannot do unethical, illegal, immoral things and keep getting away with it. That's the issue that I see.
Text, chats, Facebook, you're ugly, you're fat, and then something tragic. Cyberbullying, being pushed around, not physically, but online by saying mean things.
Right. Fat shaming,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
racial, sexist remarks,
Whatever is
all of it.
mean, how can kids and parents handle
Ethnic
it? Yeah,
remarks.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just start by saying the research shows that bullying stops, gets limited, decreases, etc., when the bully is reported to authority figures. That's the research, because now the bully knows that they're being watched and that their game is up. Okay. So I recommend that parents unite with the child, and the child can report this themselves. Go to the school security officer, go to the vice principal, the school nurse, one of the teachers, whoever there will listen, or all of the above, and make an official report. And sometimes the principal or the vice principal will have the parents come in, or both sets of parents come in with the children or without the children, and have a discussion. The issues that I have seen is that what happens with bullies is that they're being bullied at home. And the father is a bad role model, or the mother is a bad role model to this child. And another thing is, it's like the boss hollers at the husband, who hollers at the wife, who hollers at the kid who kicks the cat. So it's displacement of anger to somebody that you have power over by getting rid of it. So that's another reason why bullying happens. So that these bullies are picking on kids who are shorter, fatter, whatever, unattractive, whatever the
Right.
bullying
Okay.
gets them.
So it
So
sounds
I
you need
say,
to stop it the first time. Don't let it drag on
that's
because
right.
God forbid what can happen. Okay.
Well, children get killed, children
Sadly,
get
yeah.
maimed. This
Yeah.
is very dangerous.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so you call in the authorities, and if you have to call in the police, the school security officer, you do that too. And if you literally have to report somebody or file against them for bullying, cyber stalking, whatever, then you need to use the courts to protect children. That's it. And then also to help the child who's the bully as well, to see what's going on and why the kid is so angry, and is there child abuse
Yeah.
going on at home?
Yeah.
Is the child being beaten with belts, fists, punching, slapping, kicking, whatever? That's what goes on, as well as making the child who's the survivor of the bullying stronger. Like I said, get them into a judo or kickboxing or mixed martial arts class. Give that child a sense of power.
Self-defense,
Get
some
them into
self-power.
sports. That's right.
You mentioned, it's funny you mentioned self-defense because you and I are young enough to remember no cell phones, no Facebook, no computers. And when I was a kid, notice how I phrased that, haha. When I was a kid growing up in Brooklyn, New York, we drank a lot of coffee and stuff, but
Ah,
we
we're talking
we're
here.
talking here. We had the class bully, there's always one in every crowd. And there's, well,
The
back
mean
then,
girls.
there, I
Mean
guess
girls.
the
I had mean.
girls, I guess the girls too, but there was more than one usually. It's funny because when I started learning martial arts, Bruce Lee was my childhood hero anyway. When I started learning martial arts, suddenly the bullying all magically decreased little by little. Because they're like, oh, he knows that. Oh, okay. It was anyway, we're going back a few years,
Right.
but you were right about the self-defense. It makes absolute sense. Okay.
Good.
And the next question here. The national drug problem, speculation. I come to you with my spouse or son, say, Linda, I admit it, we take drugs, they got started. It was a, you know, friendly meeting with friends, and one thing led to another. How can you help us?
So the first thing I always say to people with a drug problem is, I don't deal with anyone who is not in a 12-step program, first of all. Okay. That means Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Gambling Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, whatever. Some people want to go to a rehab facility as well, where they have, their 12-step groups in the rehab facility, where you have to get a sponsor and you work the 12 steps and you do all the things, which is one of the most blessed programs ever in the history of the world. So I don't work with anybody who has a drug problem who is not enrolled, or after they come out of rehab, a center for 3 months, 2 months, 6 months, whatever. But they have to be in a 12-step program, and they have to have a sponsor. They have to sign a release that I can talk to the sponsor. It's a concerted effort of support. And I have seen miracles, absolute miracles happen when people are in AA, CA, NA, OA, GA, whatever, Gambling Anonymous. So it's just a wonderful program.
When I was a kid back in my Brooklyn days, the stuff was there. It was available if you wanted it. Drugs, guns, whatever. I always politely said no and walk away. Don't judge. Don't be mean. Don't agitate anyone. Just, it's true. But you got to start from the beginning. Just say no. It worked for me and probably for many other. Once you cross that step, the first step, it's hard to turn around. So for me,
Right.
back then, I was smart enough, or I had God watching me, whatever you want to call it, just said, no, man, I'm good, and walk away. Now, man, part of that was probably my street smarts, if you want to call it that. But I could have just as easily crossed to the other side, to the dark side as it was, and maybe not be here today. But just say no, but you got to nip it in the bud, as they say, from the beginning. No, and walk away. And I think that still works. Just say no, right?
Well, yes, absolutely it works. And there's other societal issues and psychological issues that are going on. So that's what I'd like to talk about right now. Most of the people who get involved with drugs are the victims of child abuse, sex abuse, incest, rape, beatings, kicking, slapping, punching. They're using drugs to numb the emotional pain, anger, sadness, depression, self-destruction that is going on. And the sad part is, it's like drinking salmonella to get rid of food poisoning. it's it's like it doesn't work. You're taking a drug, whether it's big pharma drugs or not big pharma, and even with marijuana, which is legal in some states, you're numbing yourself out. Get into therapy. You don't have money, go to the local family center where you can get cheap therapy, $5 a session, family services, whatever, and get a good therapist. Join a therapy group to see what is causing you to do drugs. Were you abused? Were you raped? Was it an incest situation? A father, a stepfather, an uncle, a grandfather? Even mothers I've had in my practice have molested their own children. So it's not just fathers. So that's what you have to deal with. And if you're with a good therapist
Yeah.
who's active and confrontive, that's what they need to do to get rid of the pain. And then the drug use isn't needed anymore.
So we talked about family and technology. In a situation where a person or a family has a problem, does doing like a meeting like this, therapy, is this good enough, or is it more important to meet in person, or does it matter anymore, or do you need both?
I think you need both. Okay.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, a lot of people are doing telehealth. They're doing
Yeah.
conferences. It's the contact, it's the emotional relationship with your counselor, your psychotherapist, your psychiatrist.
Human interaction versus the TV in front of us. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, and I always say pray, go to support groups. That's why I always recommend AA, CANA, et cetera, 12-step groups.
Okay.
That's why I recommend rehab. Get into a situation where you're surrounded by professionals who can help you work through this, because the addiction, a lot of times, of course, is genetic. And so you're dealing with habitual obsessive behavior, which is inherited.
One final question. What is the number one? I know you hosted a TV show back in the 90s, part of America's Home Health Network out of
America's
Florida.
Health, right. It was out of Universal Studios with America's Health Network, which was associated with the Mayo Clinic.
Oh, right. So people would call in with questions. Hey, Dr. Durre, I have this problem. Looking back a few years later, what is the number one problem today with families versus back then, or nothing has really changed? So if you had to pick the number one problem today, is it communication? Is it drugs? A lack of quality family time, or a combination of everything?
All of the above.
Wow.
And communication is really at the root of everything. People are not communicating. They're in denial. They want to shut it off. They want to pretend it's not there. So it's about a lack of confrontation. It's a lack of doing the right thing. In dysfunctional families, nobody wants to rock the boat. Let's say the mother doesn't have her own income. And let me also say this, it doesn't matter what the socioeconomic levels are. There was a case I had where these people were on the society pages.
Okay.
And there were 3 generations of incest.
Oh
So
boy,
instead of going
that's
to
sad.
Walmart,
Yeah.
these people would go to, Saks and Bendel's and
Okay.
in those days Bonwood Tellers and leave the kids home with the father and the grandfather to sexually molest them.
Wow. So
Communicate, get the professional help you need, get it done.
communication is number one. That's never going to change. Okay.
And get the professional help you need.
And you've been doing this how long again?
Let's see, if you count postdoc and graduate school, 50 years.
Wow,
I
God bless.
celebrated
God bless.
my golden wedding anniversary to my career.
Wow,
last September.
congratulations. Congratulations. Yeah.
And I've been an expert witness. It'll be 49 years
Wow.
in August, and
Oh,
in
wow.
one more week, it will be 46 years being a licensed therapist.
And we've talked in person when she came to visit. She is a genuine, decent, good human being. So all you guys who need help or know someone that needs help, she's in Florida, But hey, you can look her up. Again, I'll have all the links below in the show notes how to contact her. Okay.